Hey everybody, welcome back to the most awesomest homesteading channel on the planet that has nothing to do with homesteading whatsoever, typically homesteading off the grid. So I've got 3 wonderful emails that we received recently from you folks about what's been going on with whatever's going on up in the sky. Let's make sure we get a better view of that. There's a commonality. A lot of folks keep saying, I need to contact so-and-so, me, I being me. I need to contact this podcaster. I need to contact this researcher. That's never going to happen. And half of the names you've mentioned have already contacted me recently because of my experience that my wife and I had here over the last couple of months. They have not, nor will they receive a reply from me. And when I finish reading the last email that I'm reading to you here this evening, I'm going to explain to you why that is. I'm going to save it. I'm kind of racing daylight here. And if you hear stuff in the background and the forest behind me, be patient, because this last story I read pertains more to what may or may not be going on back there, more so than what may or may not be going on up here. Kinda. The two actually might be linked. There's theories on that as well, and I'll get to that here in a future episode. But let me start with an email from Judy Glasstone. Judy writes, "Hello, Kevin. I've watched one of your videos this week, the one where you felt very ill after witnessing an orb. I sent that video to my brother so he could watch it. Later, I called him and asked him what he thought about it. My brother is ex-military. He was in the Army and he's retired Navy. Kudos to your brother. I thank your brother for his service. He told me about the orbs he's been seeing. He's been seeing these bright orange orbs come up from the mountains near him. They all have headed towards the nearby air base. Then they go back to dark when they get there, and every time a fighter jet is launched to check them out. He's seen these for over 3 years now, ever since he and his wife moved near to this base. They appear late at night between 10:30 and 11 p.m. They've seen them about half a dozen times in 3 years. He thinks they may be out every night. He usually goes to bed at about 8 p.m., so he's not up late enough to find out. My brother lives in a rural area on a ranch. Every time they've seen them, he said the base sends up their standby fighter jets, so he says they must be seeing these on radar. He suspects these orbs are visible every night. My brother is retired Navy. He was a P-3 pilot for years and later head of maintenance on the USS Kitty Hawk. Just some more orb info for you. Something is going on for sure, and they seem to be getting more and more obvious. Thank you for your channel and the topic you cover. Judy." Judy, thank you for letting us know that. So there we have reference to another military guy, somebody who worked in the field of aerospace, who's witnessing these things as well. Now, again, thank you for everybody who's sending emails. I pointed out how it's probably going to be more effective for you to email the channel than to leave your story in a comment, which is still fine. But again, for me to get to your story, if you leave it as a comment on a video, I've got to dig through thousands and thousands and thousands of comments that come in daily, and I might not catch it. But since the last video, there's been a massive uptick in emails. So now, of course, we're getting a ton of emails, but that makes it more likely that I will see your story and that your story will see airtime and the rest of the world will hear it. So, and again, I've mentioned that if you don't want me to use your name, let me know to keep you anonymous, and I will. And that's the case for this next writer in regard to that. They want to be known as a Cherokee in Iowa. I know their name. They told me their name, but they want to be known as a Cherokee in Iowa. So here's an email from a Cherokee in Iowa. "Dear Kevin, on Memorial Day weekend, 1977, I was 15 years old and going home with my parents from a bluegrass music show in central Arkansas. We lived off Highway 107, just south of Vilonia. That's it, Vilonia, Arkansas at the time. We turned off the interstate and onto the highway from Conway, then on to Valonia, and that's when my parents and I saw the fire in the sky. Since we lived so close to an Air Force base and had experiences with C-130 crashes, this late at night we were sure there was another crash and the woods were on fire. This much we could see on the way from Conway to Valonia. As we passed through Valonia and turned south on 107, the fire in the sky began to take shape. Still a very bright orange and red, but it looked for sure in the sky and not a plane crash in the woods on the ground. Driving south on 107, the fire in the sky seemed to morph into one solid geometrical shape. And as we drove further on 107, the fire eventually turned into a triangle with lights at each point. Y'all probably hear that. I got to make sure I can't see it. I hope it's just an airplane. Isn't that sky behind me beautiful? It looks like a pastel painting. Tell you, I love living here. I don't even like leaving my property. On with it. Nearing the intersection of Highway 89 and 107, there was no doubt that it was an enormous black triangle hovering not far from the school where we parked to watch the triangle. The large black triangle was at least the size of a professional football field. Yeah, there's a lot of activity in the woods behind me. Be patient, you're getting ready to see it, and it's relevant to what I'm about to talk to you about. We rolled down the car windows and only heard a light hum. At some point, mesmerized as we were, my dad said, "Let's get out of here." My dad put the foot on the gas and still watched the black triangle out the back window until we were safely home. Once we got home, my parents made me promise never to tell anyone. Even on my dad's deathbed in 1996, he asked if we remembered that night. We couldn't sleep the night that we had this experience due to the excitement, the sheer puzzlement of wondering what was going on, and also because we could hear something running around the house. This gets really creepy, folks. Something was running between our bedrooms, even from the bathroom shower into my closet. Then it ran down the hall and somehow opened the front door. We could hear it open the door, and then it left, and it was a long time before we could sleep at all. Many years later, I had dreams of being in a small craft of some sort and running the controls while flying over Little Rock and the Arkansas River at night. Many years I had that dream. Plus, the craft would drop me off at some property south of where we lived. It was marshy with black water, and in the dream I'd be wading through the marshy area until I somehow got lifted up and found myself on the front porch. Best part about these dreams was that I could understand complex mathematical equations and actually craved algebra, calculus, geometry, etc. That has got to be an otherworldly experience if you're craving that stuff. Just saying. I've had other UFO experiences as well as Bigfoot, red glowing eyes and orbs, paranormal stuff, etc. Please read my story, but don't use my real name. Just say a Cherokee in Iowa. Love your show. Thank you, Cherokee in Iowa. We loved your story. Absolutely believe you. She alluded to Bigfoot, all kinds of other stuff. You've probably been hearing stuff moving around in the woods behind me. Let's change the tone a bit, because I'm going to talk about something right here that I addressed momentarily in the beginning. Now, I hold my tripod with a piece of firewood so it doesn't fall if the wind kicks up. There's no wind right now. I need my coffee. I'm spoiled in that pretty much every afternoon I take a nap. But I do get up early. I'm up by 5, working diligently. Usually get more done by the time the sun comes up than most people do in a day. But I cherish those 1 hour long afternoon naps. All right, so I mentioned that you guys have been mentioning, hey, call so-and-so, contact so-and-so. No, and you're going to understand here real soon the reason why, even though half of those folks have already contacted me. Let's get on to our final story, and then I'll give more explanation. And again, if you feel safer sharing your story from an anonymous point of view, let me know. We've got another one, and I will absolutely keep you anonymous. I know who this person is, but none of you will, because I've given my word that I won't share that information. So this email does come to us from South Africa, okay, a viewer in South Africa. They write, "Hi, Kevin. Please keep me anonymous if you read this on your channel. Thanks." And here I am doing so. "I've been following your channel on and off for years now. I always wanted to tell you a story about one of your much earlier videos from a few years ago, so finally here goes. In the video I was watching, you were talking in your backyard, standing right in front of the tree line. On my screen, you were standing to the left, which left the whole of the right side in the middle of the view, just showing the forest. And as usual, I was getting your six, i.e., focusing on my all of my visual attention on the forest around you and behind you while listening to you talk, as I am sure many of your listeners have done." Make sure you can see all the way back. There we go. This one hit a nerve, and that's why I'm getting ready to talk to you about what I'm getting ready to talk to you about. "Well, suddenly I saw a hulking, truly huge, human-shaped figure start to walk through the trees from the right side of the screen towards the left side. I mean, this being was incredibly powerfully shaped, enormous, muscular. The thing that shocked me so very much was that it looked completely see-through. I assure you, I am not making this up. You don't have to prove anything to me. Trust me. It walked more like strode with its enormous arms swinging just a few paces and then seemed to blend completely with the forest because it just went completely invisible and I never saw it again. I don't consider myself a stupid person, so I did what any reasonable person would do in those circumstances. I started to read the comments under the video, and yes, among the comments there, I read a single commenter, from someone who described seeing the exact same thing in the video. The fact that you did not react to this giant being walking in the woods a ways behind you told me that it had not made any sound at all, which would be impossible with a regular physical human. So I knew then that not only was it capable of somehow cloaking itself, but it was not in a regular physical form as we recognize the term. I can tell you that its body looked like water, and I could see through it to the trees behind it just as you could see through water. It moved very fluidly. It was not hesitant or stumbling or stepping over any undergrowth or pushing trees or branches out of its way. It simply strode through the forest. I'm envisioning like a hologram. Okay, you probably are too if you're paying close attention. I read all the comments on that particular video, and at that time I saw no more comments about the giant being other than the one. I did not comment. So, because there was only one comment, that led me to understand that most of your viewers did not or could not, key words here, see it at all. Otherwise, there would have been a storm of comments about it. Actually, seeing that video of yours, seeing that huge being as I had seen it, caused me to quit watching anything to do with Bigfoot as I took time to kind of process what I had seen, and yes, I watched the Predator movie again. Regrettably, I did not take a note of the title of that video or the date that you released it. So when I later went back to look for it, unless I was going to watch hundreds of your videos and read thousands of the comments to look for that one video with that one comment, I couldn't find it. I don't know if you ever saw that one person's comment or indeed if you ever saw that same being or that video. To date, I cannot say what exactly that being is or was. I have read extensively, listened to many podcasts, watched many videos looking for more info. To me personally, what I saw was not possessed of hair covering its head and body as most accounts of Bigfoot sightings give it, as its outline seemed smooth, not spiky, as it would be if it had hair, but that does not mean to say it wasn't a Bigfoot in another form. Only that I don't see any hair. I can say that the shape of its body was completely consistent with reports from Bigfoot sightings. The huge, bulky, powerful shape. I have given a lot of thought as to why most people don't or couldn't see it, and I don't have the answer. What I can say for sure is that there is an awful lot of mystique about human eyes, the anatomy, and what and how the eyes are capable or not of seeing, whilst the brain is operating on certain different frequencies of brainwave, as measurable via EEG devices, which helps to understand how prophets and seers and shaman and others can see what they see when they see. And I'll leave it at that. P.S. I have a lot of crazy stories from my own life in South Africa, but this story is yours. It is true, and it is from your life. All the very best to you, Anonymous. Anonymous, you couldn't have picked a better time to send me that message. I'm thankful for that. Folks, we have almost 3,000 videos on this channel. I've been doing this for a little over 8 years now on this platform. And I am going to try to find that video. I'll go do keyword searches and see if I can come up with it so I can share it again with you and everybody else. But here's why I have not, and this is why I will not contact the folks you're telling me I should contact. And again, half of them have already contacted me. What I'm going to tell you is a true story. It's part of my history as a social media content creator. But it basically, what it boils down to is one thing, and one thing predominantly: my ability to take care of my family, which is me, my wife, and our son. Me, my wife, and our son is the most important thing in my life. That is numero uno priority. That's where it begins and that's where it ends. Now, with that said, you'll better understand this story I'm about to tell you. I was down and out in the Philippines for many years. Those of you who have followed this channel for some time know that story, so I won't beat that dead horse. Sounds like an airplane, let's hope. I had lost contact with everybody that I'd known in my previous life before my time in service. I came home from the war in Iraq, spent 6 months in the Army hospital. I was hurt physically, I was hurt mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. I ended up, as a result of my deployment, losing the 3 children from my first marriage, all of whom are pushing 30 right now, with whom I've had no contact in nearly 15 years. I am estranged from my entire family of origin. I was in the Philippines, living in the jungle, without water, without electricity, digging up roots to eat, to boil as soups, and getting my protein from edible grubs. Okay? But I fell in love with this beautiful young Filipino lady. Her name's Dearly. She's known as Giggly Girl on this channel. She would give me, well, I had a hand in it and some other body parts, a wonderful son who's now getting ready to turn 14, who is a well-adjusted young man who's living the dream life right outside of Charlottesville, Virginia, in Central Virginia, where we own this. All right, and there's a house way down there. That's our house somewhere, and Drunken Santa Claus is down there too somewhere. All right, so anyway, how did I go from being down and out in the jungles of the Philippines, suicidal, homicidal? I mean, I'm just telling you how it was, folks. Addicted to anything that would alter my mood, any substance I could get my hands on, namely alcohol, because that's all I had access to. And you're thinking, well, gosh, if things were so bad, how could you afford to buy alcohol? I didn't. I was drinking something called tuba, which is, it's like, what do they call that? Prison juice they make in prison. I mean, it'll kill you. It comes from a coconut tree. I just don't want to get into it because it's going to waste your time. But here's the deal. My wife believed in me. I wanted to be a writer. I wanted to tell stories. She supported me. She said, don't give up. I didn't give up, not because of me, but because of her and because of that kid. I had 2 people in my life that loved me like I'd never been loved before in my life, and I decided I was going to return that love, and everything I was going to do was going to be for, about, and totally dedicated to them. I made it. Okay, I got into blogging. I got into, some people would give me some blogging jobs. This is when blogging and Facebook was kind of relatively new. This is going back 15 years. I started earning an income. I became really good at what I did. And I went from being an employee to some of these, for some of these folks, to being a business partner. And I went from being down and out in the Philippines, living in an earthen floor hut without water or electricity and literally eating worms and roots, to making tens of thousands of dollars monthly and being able to come to the U.S., bring my family with me, and buy what is now a $1 million property for less than a fourth of that. And no, we've never touched the equity because I'm just not stupid with money. I'm not materialistic, not consumeristic. We are living the life, okay? Now, some of the people I'd partnered with got greedy, okay? They didn't care about the social media platforms, community guidelines and standards. I would go to them. I'd say, listen, you're going to get us shut down. These are the rules. It's too easy to follow them. How much money do you need? I mean, we're making $30,000 to $50,000 a month each. We're paying our employees $5,000 a month each, and we had dozens of employees. How greedy do you want to be? And all these guys cared about was making the most amount of money they could, the quickest they could make it. Well, listen, I used to work on Wall Street before I was in the military. I was a stockbroker, and we had a saying on Wall Street about who wins. Sometimes it's the bulls, sometimes it's the bears, but the pigs will always get slaughtered. And that holds true in everything in life. We got slaughtered. These guys and girls continually broke every community guideline and policy on the social media platforms we were working on, and we lost all of our pages, our channels, all this stuff because of them. I never violated any of those policies, but because I was associated with them, I went down with the ship. I found myself working at the post office in Charlottesville, delivering mail and packages 12 hours a day, sometimes 17 days straight without a break, considering selling this beautiful property and home because it looked like we were going to have to, and returning to the Philippines because I wasn't going to be able to afford to live here anymore. But I'm not a quitter. I pride myself on being a winner. Some of you might think that sounds vain or arrogant or conceited, but I know how to win. I've spent my life being the underdog, coming from being down and out, the hopeless cause, the guy that's not supposed to be successful, shocking the world and ending up on top. So I did it again. I started this channel, and the first hard rule my wife and I made is that we will never partner with anyone again. Because when that happened, I lost my ability to take care of my family to the degree that by that point I had become accustomed to taking care of them because of the actions of other people. Now, I could blame them, but this is what I've learned in life, and this is why I like to call myself a winner. When bad things happen to us, it's not necessarily what happens to us that's as important as how we react to what happens to us. And when these things are bad and they're not pretty, we've got a choice. Sure, we can be a victim or we can become a victor. We chose the latter because I've spent my life making that choice. So we said, hard rule number one, we are never, ever partnering with anybody again. So if in the event I end up doing something stupid and we lose our livelihood and I have to switch directions, find another stream to flow through to make our life happen, meet our needs, I will be 100% responsible for that. I never, ever will give anybody else that much power over my family's livelihood again. So I refuse to partner with anybody. I will not be a guest on anybody else's show. Now, fast forward. We hit pay dirt with this channel. Mostly not because we could grow corn and green beans. We couldn't. Everything we planted died typically. But like the last email I read, people started seeing stuff in the backdrops. This property has a heck of a history. There's graves all over it. 3 girls died in the Spanish influenza in 1918. In my house are buried right there within sight of me. Native American Indians were living here 14,000 years ago. And yes, that viewer was not the only person who's seen some unexplainable phenomena in the background behind me in these videos. So, boom, we're viral again. Boom, we're back into black. Well, I started getting contacted from other folks on this platform, many of them, who worked in that genre, paranormal, Bigfoot, Sasquatch, all these different things. Hey, man, we should do a collaboration. Let's get together. We could build our business together. I appreciated that, but I didn't even take the time to respond because our number one, first and hard rule was we will never partner with anybody again because we are not going to give anybody that much power over our livelihoods. Okay? If it is to be, it's up to me, us, a family unit. And if we fail, if the ship goes down, it's because we're the ones that made the mistakes. We're not letting other people have that much power again. Well, since I didn't reply, or I guess they took that as a no. Some of them literally threatened me with follow-up emails. They said, well, clearly you're faking what you're doing, and I'm going to make sure my audience knows. And over the course of, let's say, the next year, these folks that had big audiences made sure to tell everyone to consider their source of information. So one day, out of the blue, all these wonderful commenters on my channel who are like, man, I've had this experience with that, or I saw this, and I can't believe you get that close to them, and blah, 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 start coming at me like, you're a fake, you're a fraud, you probably weren't even in the military, you're making all that stuff up, that's you with costumes, you're photoshopping stuff into your videos, you're editing and all these things. I don't even know how to do that stuff, okay? So, whatever. Fortunately, by that point, we did take a sharp decline as far as that audience went. So it went from me being a darling of that particular audience to being public enemy number one. You know, I've never visited a Bigfoot convention, and people would email or they message and say, hey, there's a convention down in North Carolina, or hey, there's one in Virginia, you going? I would receive 10 times as many emails or comments saying, you better not show up at that convention because you're not welcome. You better hope we don't see you there. We're going to let you know how we feel about what you're doing. All I ever did was the best I could to take care of those that I love. That's all I'll ever do going forward. So be prepared, a lot of you new followers of this channel, to hear soon, since I've not replied to a lot of the very folks you've told me I should be in touch with, half of whom have already contacted me, but will not receive a reply. Be ready for them to discredit me. It's coming, I know it, but I don't care. You know why? This isn't the first time I've been thrown to the wolves. I've been thrown to the wolves so many times I can't count. And every time I have been, I've come back leading the pack. See you for more next time.